Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and today I am starting a new video series called Manga Monday. I know that a few people use the hashtag Manga Monday for various reasons. I've seen a few different people on YouTube who use it, but nobody's really kind of using it together, so I figured I'm going to do it as well, but I'm going to do my own thing. Also, I just really couldn't think of any other name to call this, so if you have a good name that I can call this, I would love to hear it, and I will maybe change the name. But for now, it's Manga Monday. And basically what I'm going to be doing every second and every fourth Monday of the month is I'm going to be recommending to you a series of manga, maybe like 3 to 10 different titles, on a specific theme. So I have a number of themes sort of set up to talk about over the year. Hopefully this will be interesting to you. If you are looking for content to put out on your blog or on your YouTube channel and you want to participate as well, I have been considering just sort of listing all of my topics on my blog. If you're interested in that list, let me know, and if there's enough people, then I will actually like pre-post what the topics are so we can all, talk about the same things at the same time. Or alternatively, if you are watching these videos and there's something specific that you want to hear about, a theme, or just an idea that you want to see more recommendations from, let me know. Certainly you can leave your suggestions for recommendation videos below, and I'm very flexible. I can rearrange things. The topics I've chosen are ones that are interesting to me, but they might not be interesting to anyone else, so I would really like to talk about things that interest both of us. So if you have any recommendations, I would love to hear about it, and we'll see if I can squeeze them in over the year if they work. If there's something that I read, I certainly can't recommend to you titles that I don't read anything of, but definitely let me know. Anyway, let's get going. So today I'm going to recommend you titles that are meta-manga. You may not know that term, meta-manga, because I have made it up. I don't know that I've heard anyone else refer to manga as meta-manga, but meta as a prefix in its sort of modern popular form refers to X about X, something about that same thing. In terms of manga, it is manga about manga, or at least that's how I am using it here. So these are going to be a bunch of titles that talk about manga, or about manga creation, or about manga reading, are just about manga. And manga is my favorite thing, and when I read manga about manga, it just puts me in such a good mood. It's this sort of hidden secret world. The author already knows very much what they're talking about. You sometimes hear that phrase, to write well you have to write something you know. Well, meta-manga is that author's job. That's something that they're already doing. They're already creating manga, or they're already fans of manga, so they're writing something that they already know something about. These titles tend to be really good in my opinion, or they're just at least very enjoyable. They're kind of a little bit of an insider's secret into the world of manga, and since manga is my favorite thing, I thought I would talk about that first. And so I have a handful of recommendations here for you. The first title I recommend to you is Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun by Izumi Tsubaki. This is a shoujo 4-koma manga, which means that it is a 4-strip, 1, 2, 3, 4 strip panel comedy manga, intended originally for a female audience. This is a story about Nozaki-kun, who is the boy here on the cover. He's a high school student, and as well as a mangaka, he writes a very popular shoujo manga for Monthly Girls magazine. In one of the first panels or first pages, he is introduced to a fellow classmate who is confessing her feelings to him, but because he is so self-absorbed in his manga creation process, he thinks that she's actually asking for his autograph. She quickly gets sort of pulled into the manga creation process, and then over the story you meet more and more fellow classmates who have some sort of vested interest in creating manga, or at least in creating his manga. It is really fun. It is super funny. It is hard to get into because of the 4-koma style, but I think as a 4-koma manga, it is one of the better ones. It does take you a little bit of time to get used to the patterning and the story style, because it is sort of punchline setups on every single page. It is very jokey, joke heavy. If you are not really a big fan of 4-koma, I think a good way to get into this one is to watch the anime first. 4-koma translated into anime is such a good way to understand the 4-koma, just because translation of comedy is not always easy. But I certainly think this is one of the better ones. It's really fun, and it's very heavily based on the idea of creation of manga. I don't know that I would believe that this author in particular has, as a teenager, been a very popular mangaka. I can't imagine that many teenagers would be able to do that and go to high school. It is a little bit far-fetched that way, but it is really fun and funny and silly and just a good time. The next title that I'd recommend is I'll Give It My All Tomorrow by Shunju Aono. This is a seinen manga. It was published by Viz in their signature Ikki imprint. I'm not entirely sure if this is still in print, but certainly it is a short series, so it wouldn't be super hard, I think, to get all of the collection if you're going to look at collecting it. This is basically about the character here on the cover. He's in his 40s, he's a single father, and he's a complete loser. He's a slacker, he has no discipline, but at the same time he has a dream to become a mangaka, and so this story is about kind of what that dream is and how he pursues it as an undisciplined loser, and his relationships with the people around him. It's more of a drama than it is really anything else. It's more about just sort of interconnected personal relationships. I do think that maybe the storytelling itself is a little bit similar to like Taiyo Matsumoto, maybe. It's just a really enjoyable, good drama, and I highly recommend it. Another out-of-print series, and this one is going to be really hard to find. Good luck to you, but it's definitely worth your time. This is a 4-volume series called Flower of Life by Fumi Yoshinaga. This is essentially the story about this boy here who has been sick for a while and has been missing a lot of school, and so now he's returning to school, but he's returning to a class below. He wasn't able to move up grades with the rest of his class, and so he's new to his class. He's the oldest in his class, and he's sort of separate from everybody else. One of the things that he has done while he's been away sick is that he's basically developed his drawing skills, and he draws manga. Quickly within this series, it's only 4 volumes long, he becomes friends with the 2 characters here on the back. So this sort of a little bit overweight cute boy, and then this antisocial, really cool otaku boy. He's sort of a hidden otaku. The 3 of them together, they end up forming a manga creators club, and they end up writing a manga that they hope to get published. This is just a really sweet and lovely story about friendship. Fumi Yoshinaga is really known primarily for her yaoi manga, although she does tend to write some very lovely Josei drama. This would be one of them. This is really just a story about friendship and sort of some of the heartbreak that they have to go through together, and kind of discovering themselves together, and just a really nice, warm story. Definitely a great one, and really focuses heavily on manga. The next title that I would recommend is Insufficient Direction by Moyoko Ano. This doesn't necessarily deal directly with the manga writing process, although it does somewhat. This is sort of a semi-autobiographical comedy drama about Moyoko Ano and her husband Hideaki Ano, who is the famous director of the Neon Genesis Evangelion series. It is so weird and so wacky, and it'll make you feel so incredibly stupid as someone who thinks they know about anime and manga. There are so many references in this that I absolutely had no idea about, because Hideaki Ano is known for being sort of an ultra otaku. He is so incredibly engrossed in this hobby, and his knowledge is deep and obsessive, to say the least. It is a really funny series. You can see here on the back that Moyoko Ano has actually drawn herself with this like little baby figure. So throughout the entire series, she's drawn like that. It's just really fun. It's really wacky. You learn a lot, and you have to look up a lot when you're reading it. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Certainly you're not going to understand everything. I think that's sort of a given. I read this and I feel like I maybe understood a quarter of what I was reading. There's so much reference to other Japanese pop culture that I have no knowledge of whatsoever. I was looking things up constantly, and there was things that I was missing that I knew that I didn't even know how to look them up because I just don't know about that stuff. So it is sort of complicated, but at the same time it's just really enjoyable to read, and it's sort of fascinating to read sort of the insider life of someone who is a fan and a creator of manga, as well as a husband who is a fan and a creator of anime, and just sort of what that life looks like. Yeah, it's just really enjoyable, and I highly recommend it. Another shoujo manga about manga that I recommend is Otoman by Ayakano. Now, Ayakano is known for kind of taking gender norms and, you know, swapping them in her stories, or discussing gender somehow, or at least expectations of. This is the story about a boy and a girl who of course fall in love, like most shoujo manga do, but in it the boy has a hidden secret. You know, he is sort of known as being this very tough and austere and manly type of man, but actually he loves things that are girly and cute. Anything that is kawaii, so he likes to knit and sew, and he likes dolls and stuffed animals and frills and all of those things that are associated with girls' culture, and he's had to repress that love of something because his mother is adamant that he become the manliest of men because of her relationship with his father, and she doesn't want her son to become like his father. And then it is about a girl who is the complete opposite. She has been raised by a single father who is, I believe, a judo master, and because of her lack of sort of female intervention, she has been raised to become basically a boy. Very manly. She is really tough. She's a good fighter. She has no sort of domesticated skills or domestic skills. So she doesn't know how to cook, she doesn't know how to sew, and she can take care of herself. Because they are so opposite and they both sort of struggle with the same thing, they kind of complete each other in this really adorable relationship. It's a really fun title to read. How this is about manga is that they have a third friend, or they have an additional friend who hangs out with them, and he is a mangaka, and he has been writing a manga. This is a really similar situation you're going to see in a lot of meta shoujo manga, and basically he's writing a shoujo manga about these particular two characters, but because they in real life are kind of swapped relationships, in his manga they have swapped. So he's drawing the boy as the girl and the girl as the boy in his manga, and then sort of setting them up for different sort of situations so that he can draw them in his manga, and it's becoming very popular. It's really funny, it's really cute, and this is one I would recommend that you try out. The next title I would recommend is Genjiken by Shimoku Kyo. This is one of my top 10 favorite manga of all time, without a doubt. I don't know how many are in that top 10, but it's definitely in my top 10. I love this series so much. It is a seinen manga. It is about a club of otaku at a college. They have all various interests in Japanese pop culture, so some of them are interested in gaming, some of them are interested in manga, some are in drawing, some in cosplay, and some in like building models. It is all kind of very various. The one thing that I think they all have in common is that they like to read manga, particularly doujinshi, which are sort of self-published manga. Doujinshi usually has the flavor also of being hentai, which is really what they are reading in particular. But it is such a good series. It is beautifully illustrated. It is, I would say, obsessively detailed, the illustration, and it absolutely is wonderful. It just feels right. As someone who is in fandom and someone who has this obsession and loves this thing, I feel like the characters really do have that obsession and love that thing, and it feels sort of true in a way. The characters are just wonderful. It isn't as heavily focused on manga as some other series, but they do kind of midway through end up deciding to write a manga together and try to sell it at Comiket, so there is that aspect to it. And again, I think they try again in the future. It is just, I don't know, there's just something so wonderful about this particular series, and I love it so much, and it's a world that I want to live in. Like, it just is so incredibly comfortable to me. I love this so much. This series actually continues on after the primary characters all graduate. It continues on in second season, which again deals with manga, but this one is more particularly focused on cosplay, and it does have a different group of characters, primarily female characters, which is kind of interesting, as well as 2 American characters which were introduced in the previous series, so that is actually kind of fantastic because American characters, especially American otaku represented in manga, they're always like super weird and super unrelatable, and you know, it's awkward to read because they're so other, but these otaku actually feel right, and they feel like they belong in this group, and they're weird, but it's not embarrassing, I think is what it is. So I highly recommend this particular series. But then if you go further into the franchise, and this one is out of print, you've also got Kujibiki Unbalanced by Shimo Kukio, and this is probably the most meta of all meta manga that I own in my collection. This is the manga that the characters, at least in the first series, obsess over. So this is the manga that was written in this manga, or particularly the anime that they watch. So Kujibiki Unbalanced is it's sort of really how I would describe otaku manga. It is a story that is written to be analyzed and taken apart and looked at for its particular forms and tropes and character styles and character types and different scenarios. It's very formulaic in that way, but it's actually kind of enjoyable. It's only 2 volumes long. It is heavily fan service, so if you're offended by that, I wouldn't look into it. It is also very out of print. It was published by Del Rey, so it's a little bit hard to find, but surprisingly a decent read for something that was based off of another manga, but it just had to include it in this list because it is so incredibly meta. Even if you don't end up picking this one up, this one isn't the most recommended in this list. It is definitely this one, and this one has been reprint in an omnibus edition, and you can still pick it up. The anime as well is absolutely wonderful, and I highly recommend it. The last thing that I'm going to recommend is Kinko Use books by Seimu Yoshizaki. This one might be a little bit harder to find. I do believe it might be recently out of print, but it is absolutely 100% worth your time if you're a fan of manga. This was published by Viz in their Sig Ikki imprint, and they only made it to volume 4. There are more volumes out there in Japanese, and I would definitely pick them up in Japanese if my language was good enough, because it's absolutely wonderful. It's one of the best things that you'll read. This is literally the mantra of manga fans. This is, manga is great, manga is for everyone, manga can be read by anyone, and it's okay to read manga, and it can solve some of your problems, and it's just, everything about it is wonderful. It is a series of short stories about a particular secondhand store. They have this cavernous underground layer of manga that is basically every manga ever written, and people come into their shop looking for something, usually a personal need, and they end up finding it in manga, or they end up being recommended a manga which will help them in some way. It's so wonderful. I can't even explain to you how wonderful it is. Particularly, I think volume 4 was the one where I was like, yes, this is exactly manga for manga lovers. It talks about actual manga which are published in Japan. It talks about historical manga which are important in Japan, which we don't have translated here. And this is one of the reasons that my my need to learn the language has been spurred on lately. It's because I need to read these titles that this manga in particular talks about, and I know they're never going to get translated into English, and we need them. I need them. So I absolutely recommend this. This is a wonderful title. It really discusses the value and the merit of manga and the readership of manga and why you should like manga. It's great and highly, highly recommend it. So here we go. These are the manga that I recommend that are meta-manga. There are, of course, tons of meta-manga, and there's tons of incidents in manga where a character is drawing manga or they talk about manga in some capacity. These are ones that are just slightly more specifically like all the way throughout meta-manga. And they're all great series. They're all ones that I would definitely recommend to just about anyone. So that's it for my Monday manga recommendations. Hopefully you found something interesting in this. Hopefully that encouraged you to pick some of these titles up because they're absolutely wonderful. Anyway, if you have any recommendations about manga, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. We can chat about it down there. Also, if you have any suggestions for recommendation videos, I would love to hear about them. Also, if you are interested in participating in doing this as well with me, and talk about the same themes on the same days, I would love for people to do that. If I have enough interest in that, I will definitely share that list, so definitely let me know down below if that's something that you would be interested in doing as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.